Well, hi everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Feeling Smarter. As always, I'm joined by my co-host today, Tim Miller. G'day, Tim. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, Aaron. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Well, we are into November, and this month we have our upcoming SMSF masterclass where we're looking at the topic of trustee and member changes. So today's session, we're going to start to dive into this topic to help frame up what people can expect from the upcoming masterclass. And the first area that I'm interested in sort of posing to you is to discuss the eligibility, or some respects the ineligibility, of when someone could become a member of an SMSF.
Yeah, and look, it's an interesting concept that Aaron, because ultimately, when you go through from a legislative point of view, ultimately there is very few actual restrictions on membership from a self-managed superannuation fund point of view. You've got a restriction primarily linked to employer-employee relationships, so subject to who other members are of the fund. That might restrict who can be a member of a fund, and again, a lot of that comes then down to related parties and who the people are. And then the other sort of primary restriction that links itself to membership is somebody who's bankrupt. So, or somebody more to the point who is a disqualified person, using bankruptcy as a singular example there. So if you are disqualified, again, which is defined within the SIS Act, then you can't be the member of a self-managed superannuation fund, because, as we will talk through in the workshop, you have alternate trustee arrangements that come in place, and the one thing you can't do is you can't appoint your legal personal representative if you're a disqualified person. So it basically means that there's really, it's almost limitless in theory as to who can be in a fund with somebody else. Whether they should be is a totally different question as well.
Yeah, so I think, and the other part there that you raise is certainly valid insofar that the definition of an SMSF broadly allows you and I to become members in our own fund, or in a single fund. But there are other examples within other bits of law, and I use this thinking about ROPS transfers, so transfers from overseas, whereby the ability to actually get that transfer of money across actually will require the deed to actually place restrictions on who can become a member of the fund. So that sort of drafting within the deed therefore becomes important as well, because there may be circumstances equally where, and I use the words in-laws might be outlaws, so that you might want to put some form of restriction into that membership to limit ultimately who you want to actually come in.
Yeah, that's right. And to use your example there, and the whole concept of bringing money across from the UK, that's not a problem in Australia. It's you're not creating any sort of issues from an Australian superannuation point of view. You're actually looking at what the rules are in the United Kingdom, which then puts restrictions on who else can be members. So yeah, as I said before, very broad in the SIS sense as to who can be members, but you've got to look beyond that when determining what's right for your fund moving forward.
And I think the other one there, just to pop in my head, is understanding the jurisdictions that you're working within is crucial here, because we just touched on the UK pension transfers there, but you and I have seen examples over recent months where we've had conversations about, again, potential restrictions needed in the deed for State Revenue Office purposes as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and they're just some of the sorts of things that we have to sort of take into consideration when you're looking at the entire structure of the fund. Is not just what does SIS say, but how are all these other sort of events, for want of a better term, linked to what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess conditionally, membership will allow us to bring in who we want. We need to understand, therefore, some external factors that might influence how membership might be derived. What other things, therefore, in that process do we need to consider? I'm probably thinking here about not so much the membership themselves and the fact that they can be members, but where the trusteeship poses a problem. So the obvious one there is where we have children that may want to be admitted into the SMSF.
Yeah, so look, and that's where the SIS Act does start to be a little bit more specific, and it talks about this concept of legal disability. And so certainly people who are under a legal disability cannot be trustee or cannot act as trustee of their self-managed super fund. One of those disabilities is children under the age of 18. So, regardless of the number of kids, you look at self-managed super funds, 6-member funds, all those sorts of things. If they're under 18, they can't be members, they can't be trustees of the fund because of that legal disability. Similarly, someone that has lost capacity, right? So they don't have the mental capacity to operate as trustee of their fund. And of course, that's not a decision that can be taken lightly, nor is it a decision that can ultimately be made by the members themselves. It is more linked to a medical-based decision or a court-based decision to determine somebody's ability to be able to make sound decisions. And so you've then got to contemplate all these additional elements from a trusteeship point of view on top of your desire to be a member, so whether you can actually be a member of a fund, and then of course continue to monitor it on an ongoing basis, because whilst you might satisfy the conditions to be the trustee one year, if then something subsequently happens to you the next year, and there's the classic example there is, as I mentioned before, bankruptcy. If you enter into bankruptcy, then in theory that you can't be trustee of the fund. But again, as we've both seen recently, there's been scenarios where, due to bankruptcy, the courts have looked more broadly at the reasons why to determine whether or not somebody can remain on as trustee of a fund. So it creates all sorts of scenarios.
Yeah, and that's really why we're having this discussion around trustee and member changes, because we are seeing more and more of that activity happening within the SMSF landscape, whether it is from things that are quite simple, where we are moving individuals into corporate trustees, or we're just simply adding members into the fund because we can now go up to 6. But the other areas that we'll spend more time on in the coming weeks in the lead up is the issues where we find changes that need to occur because of incapacity, and then obviously around the death of a member as well. So unpacking this is an area that has a lot of complexity to it. And I think today we've just highlighted some of those factors that you need to start to think about when you're looking at who are members and who are trustees. Yeah, sure, mum and dad might sound really simple, but once you start to add in elements of complexity into those arrangements, things can look very different very quickly.
Yeah, and I think the thing that we can often get caught up on in this, Aaron, is that we would very simply define self-managed super fund as a fund where all members are trustees and all trustees are members. That is kind of what the law says, but it also has all these other caveats attached to it, and so it is far broader than that, and it's really important that people understand how it all works.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you want to find out more about our upcoming masterclass, go on to our website, smartersmsf.com/events. You'll see our upcoming SMSF masterclass there. 26th of November, off the top of my head, it may even be the 25th. You'll find out more on the website. Thanks again for your time, Tim, today.
Always a pleasure.
Excellent. And we'll see you next week. Take care and bye for now.
See you all.